One of the first artists I encountered on my art journey was Chris Soal. And he is firstly someone who stands out. He's tall, he's an exceptionally kind young man. But to have the chance to sit down with him and speak about how he works with different material and is able to really create his art in a way that has spoken to collectors across the world, made sure that his pieces have been collected by some of the biggest institutions. I was really, really happy to sit down with him ahead of the launch of his new book. Chris Soal, you're like literally one of the first people that I would say I recognized in the art world here in Cape Town in South Africa, because you're always the tallest person in the room. So you make quite an impression. Besides your artworks, I walked in and I'm like, who is this guy? And here I'm sitting with you, your fabulous new book. Tell me, who is Chris Soal?
Wow. On the spot, straight away.
Okay, let's get it.
I'm myself. I'm who I am. You know, I'm a young artist. I grew up in Johannesburg. Born in 94, grew up in the south of Johannesburg. I tell people my Joburg story is geographical, right?
But Joburg South does mean something else.
Yes. So I grew up in the south of Joburg. I scholarship high schooled in the north of Joburg. Mm-hmm. I universitied in the center of Joburg, and I dated on the east and the west.
Oh, wow. Talk about multicultural.
So you're literally in the car on the highway a couple of hours a day.
Negotiating that M1.
Yeah.
So,
and you got a lot of time to look out the window. And if you're not in a car, you're in a bus. And I think that maybe that's a good place to start. You know, the city as a passenger, the city is something that passes you by when you're on the move. As I guess a place where a lot of my ideas come from. And then 2021, I ended up moving down from Joburg to Cape Town. Kind of, the city really opened up to me in the last few years. I was here for the art fairs, gallery shows at What If the World, and feeling like maybe I had too much Jozi hustle in me to be in Jozi. And I needed a place that could temper my own pace before it became uncontrollable. And I think Cape Town gives me that space to step in and out of my own ambition, you know, or my own urgency.
There's an interesting way of looking at it, because I suppose there is a point where it could almost be compulsive or obsessive in terms of your work. I look at your pieces. It does. I can see we're working with a very interesting mind here. But now let's slow it down a little bit, or maybe fast forward. Dakar, Senegal.
Yes.
The Raw Fellowship. Because to me, I again, you mentioned the art fairs here in Cape Town.
Sure.
That's when I first started seeing you around. And when I found out that you'd actually been part of a fellowship or at Raw, your connection to Koyo, your connection to experiencing, which has now been a highly acclaimed institution. Let's take it back to Senegal.
Sure. So that was actually one of the most amazing launch points for me coming out of university. And I ended my studies end of 2017, beginning of 2018. I got given a small residency opportunity by the South African Foundation for Contemporary Arts. I was in Knysna with Menet Vari. A couple of things kicked off. I had my first little solo show. I started with my first baby little toothpick pieces, and some little momentum was created. But then I think Koyo gave me, I guess, my first break by the invitation to come to the Raw Material Company. And Otobong Nkanga was doing her Raw Academy session, focused on, like, I think the theme was germination, but it was really focused on, like, social practices, circular and collective economies, thinking about, like, the artist not merely within the role of the studio or the presenter or the exhibitioner, but also, like, one's vocation within society, you know, and my own interest in my thesis at Wits had been around, like, relational aesthetics, which is basically about how art manifests within social spaces, right? And there's a bit of a resurgence on that at the moment with some exhibitions that are coming out, re-looking at that period in the early 2000s. But yeah, artists who were both thoughtfully engaging in that space and antagonistically engaging in that space. Like, I think of Santiago Sierra, who paid people to do very menial work just to highlight the fact that actually happens every day. So this was a major area of interest for me, and I got to go and literally live in Dakar for like a month and a half, be in this incredible space, surrounded by other artists asking similar questions. I mean, we had the most incredible faculty come through for this fellowship. We had Rick Lowe, who had the Houston project, the Houston Row project houses, I think, a Fiesta Gates-esque project. And he's now showing with Gagosian, doing these incredible cityscape paintings and pushing his practice in some new ways. We had Rosa Baba, who's now also just had a show at the MoMA at the same time as Otobong Nkanga.
I mean, Otobong, for me, she is the way she interrogates these various themes, but does it with such dignity. I mean, the Zeitz Gala last year, I remember her receiving her Lifetime Achievement Award. And literally doing, you remember, she literally did the entire acceptance speech, balancing this beautiful award on her regal head. I mean, that was something to behold.
Very special. Yeah. So, I was surrounded by this incredible crew. I mean, I think it's a really interesting model to reflect on, the fact that you have all these individuals that get to live and work together. You kind of like read, you digest, you play. It all happens in this space, and it's not just you come in for a session and you leave. Like this, like life is overlapping with art, is overlapping with community, and it really goes a lot deeper than I think just. I almost want to say. Sorry to all my Wits lecturers, but my 1.5 months at the Raw Material Company was more impactful than my 4 years at Wits, without a doubt.
Perhaps your 4 years at Wits prepared you to digest the 1.5 months at Raw in the right way. I'm just trying to give Wits some credit.
You know what? Absolutely. I would absolutely say that's the case. And, I don't look back with any regret for the time I spent there. I think... But, if we were having a chat about what I would say to younger artists, I would just say, make sure you go in with the right expectations, and the right posture, perhaps. Art school's not going to hand you an art career.
And I think that's, again, what I love, the schooled versus unschooled. The I don't know, I didn't go to art school. I mean, that's why we were sort of joking about the title of my podcast being ARTdacity, the audacity of speaking about art without a formal education in it. But art is one of those things that you actually have to live and have the shared experience with people who are not like you to have a better understanding of the themes that we often have to unpack together. And perhaps, we cannot have this kind of siloed thinking about it. Tell me a bit more. I mean, Nene Pere obviously is now going to be part of the Venice Biennale.
Yes.
You were in Venice as well as an artist.
Yes.
Do you feel that having these opportunities for international exposure helps you to see the world in in a different way?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I can give you one little example. We joked about Johannesburg, its geographical, placeness, let's say. I really thought I was quite a multicultural boy, very wise to the ways of the world. I could navigate any space. And Dakar actually ended up humbling me. I remember, so you would go out at 1 a.m. to dance, right? It would only really start at 1:30 or 2. And then you'd wrap it up at about 4 a.m. Now, I still struggle with that. I struggled with it when I was 23, 24. I couldn't imagine it now, but I justify it by saying that's the coolest hours of the day. So when you want to get hot and sweaty, do it in the coolest hours of the day.
Makes absolute sense.
And Dakar's quite a humid space. But I would end up walking back alone from these incredible dance parties, and people would just start walking alongside me, who I didn't know, in the street. We're going the same direction. They'd be going off in French, and I'd my little broken French, and we'd try and have a conversation. But in the back of my mind, I had this question when am I going to be asked for something? When am I going to be encroached on? And I realized that I was still projecting this Johannesburg bristle, this public space bubble that says I'm moving, I'm going to occupy the space, don't mess with me. And I didn't want to carry that with me into the spaces I went, through the world. And I think, that in some ways can be protective and enabling if you're in insecure spaces. But as a way of living and being, I didn't want that to be my default position as I encounter new people and new spaces.
Chris, I love that, because I think it's interesting for us as South Africans as well. The continent is wide open.
Right?
I
Totally.
just it's wide open.
And we have this chip on our shoulder, and
100%.
we need to get schooled by what's
100.
happening in
I
Africa.
think for me, I had the privilege of traveling to Accra with Koyo, and Koyo was one of those people that when you met her the first time, you'll always remember what she said to you. And I'm curious to hear what she said to you the first time. But again, one cannot the impact that she had on so many careers here in South Africa, but on the continent, and how she championed Pan-Africanism, because that's the thing for me. Sometimes I do feel in South Africa, we sort of live in our silo. We live in our little world, our little art world. But the art world on the continent is growing. It's alive. It enthuses me. And
Truly.
sadly, we don't see enough of it.
I mean, I just got back from Nairobi literally last night, and I got to see an artist studio, Kaloki and Yame's studio, who he got David Ajaya to design. It's basically like this earthen-clad structure that kind of hovers on these incredible pillars, this platform, and you've got these two squares that are offset on each other. And the volume in the space is unbelievable, you know? And he's basically just created a space to show his work. He did some soft launches locally with a couple of people, you know, that came in to see it. But it isn't a quote-unquote institution. It's just something that he's adding to the local ecosystem at the moment, you know? And I think similarly to what Koyo did in Dakar, it really can make you aware that you can actually take agency and do things.
Absolutely.
You know, and these things can ripple out in amazing ways. I mean, if I just look at my own little encounter, like with the raw material company from 2018 to now, you've got like Koyo and now her team curating the Venice Biennale. I mean, like, and then Otobong solo at the MoMA. I mean, and all of these, Rosa Baba solo at the MoMA, all of these, Rick Lowe, you know, all of these individuals who are just there at that crosspoint moment, who splints it out. Now, maybe it's the red car theory. I'm looking for the red car, but I don't think so.
I see the red car everywhere.
I fully agree. Yeah.
And I suppose what you're saying as well, it's like these moments. I look at one toothpick on its own, but you look at these amazing works that you've become world famous for. I mean, exceptional collections around the world that your pieces are found in. Just tell me again about your messaging. And I mean, that sounds so wrong in terms of I'm not speaking fluent art there. But again, let's use accessible language.
Sure.
The ideas and the themes that you're exploring with your work, that it was so beautiful also to page through your book, because you see the progression and you see the return to this almost central theme of making things useful that are sometimes discarded. Tell me about the themes behind your work.
Sure. So I think, you know, my work really teaches me as I make it. I don't often set out with the end result in mind, and I don't really have like an agenda or a didactic message that I'm trying to convey. However, and I think because of that, it's this really beautiful process of I'm actually learning as I'm making, and things are being revealed to me in the process of doing. So I'll use one body of work that has almost become like a metaphor for my practice at large, which is these threaded beer bottle cap works, which are then twisted and kind of writhing and serpentine, or you know, very they touch on a few different things, but they start to look in some cases like intestinal forms, in other cases like cerebral forms. And that became a bit of a metaphor to start to unpack my own practice, where the work of art for me doesn't reside in the gut or the brain. It doesn't reside purely in intention or in intuition, but somewhere in between. And so my privilege as an artist, especially working sculpturally and materially and allowing process to be this thing that I really engage myself in, not so much product or outcome, is that I get to learn through the doing, and I get to like explore new areas, I guess both of my own unconscious, hopefully a social unconscious, but then I feed off of what the work points back to me, and I follow these little rabbit holes, you know. So as a general overview, I think looking at the different bodies of work and the things that I'm attracted to, I guess I begin with the elements of the unexpected, something that catches me off guard. And usually that's because I'm not expecting anything from it. I've already dismissed that thing. So it's already a non-object in my world that somehow stands out in some way. reveals some sort of potential, and then I explore that as far as I possibly can. And I hope that through that exploration, I can bring the viewer into that space. And so I guess to what kind of meanings or what kind of like pursuits are behind my work, it's really how do we expand our perceptive capacity as individuals and as a society to reconsider what it is we've placed on the pedestal of value, who it is we've placed on the pedestal of value, why, and and so to kind of unlock some of those things.
Perceptive capacity. I'm writing down all of these terms. But you spoke then about process as well, because I think that was, it's again, how you realize then time, how if one had only made more notes. Koyo and I were chatting in a taxi in Accra somewhere about process. And I said to her, which are the artists who excite you the most? And she said the process is always what excites her the most.
Oh, wow.
The process of getting to a point.
Yes.
The learning through the doing. And to me, when you speak about leaving space for the intention and the intuition for that to meet, I always say to my kids, don't forget to leave space for spontaneity, because we all make our plans. As we all know, life goes on. You make your plans, but life doesn't always follow those plans. Where are you hoping, and are you intending, and are you pushing your intuition? Where would you love to see your work, and which institutional collection would you love to still see your work?
Sure. I don't even know how to answer that. I'm already just shocked that they're in institutional collections. I think, yes, I'm not going to deny that I am ambitious and I do hope for the best for my work. I really do. And I put an incredible amount of time into it. But to be 30 years old and have, this opportunity, my work's in the Brooklyn, in the San Francisco. It's in Marrakesh now. It's in the Maxi, it's in Tasmania at the moment. I don't know. I'm a bit shocked.
I must, when I look at your age and I look at your resume, I'm just like, these two don't seem to be sitting in the same sentence, but it's amazing.
Thank you.
How much you've achieved already.
Yeah, I'm just happy to kind of take my pace with it. I didn't, when I finished high school, and I was at a school on scholarship that really pushed people into your very typical kind of successful careers, doctor, lawyer, actuarial scientist, accountant, etc. And I was on the cusp of accepting a scholarship to go do one of those when my science teacher actually said, Chris, I think you could benefit from a gap year. And there was a gap year program, and they ended up covering the flight out, and I paid them back through the process. And so I worked at a school in Surrey, and I got to travel Europe, and I met people who had studied something and ended up somewhere completely different through a meeting, a side hustle, a chance encounter. So I figured, which I think is a very European or American thing, but for us South Africans it's not, because tertiary education is a privilege, right?
Absolutely.
So what we commit to, we stick to, basically.
And you pay back those loans.
Oh my gosh. So I kind of realized I could almost study anything and I'd find my way, which was maybe at the time an incredibly naive leap of faith, but I'm really glad I did it. And so I found a humanities scholarship that allowed me to study for 4 years at Wits. And so I came back and started my studies. But just before I did, I called my fam and I said, guys, I think I've made a decision. I want to study art. And the first thing my dad said was, if you need to stay at home and work from the garage till you're 35, we'd be more than happy to have you. And I remember in the back of my mind.
That's a privilege to grow up with that kind of supportive.
Totally.
Yeah.
And I remember in the back of my mind promising myself I wouldn't be at home when I'm 35. But the sentiment was, I think, so empowering for me. So, yeah, I think I already can't believe that I get to do what I do at the scale I get to do it at. I know a lot of artists get commissioned by institutions to make things. The institutions that my works are in collections have just bought the works I've made. So I'm excited to enter the phase of institutions commissioning me, because then it's about the dialogue, then it's about the space, about a responsiveness, and hopefully that will come. But for now, I'm in this amazing space where I get to make what I want, and somehow people want it back.
It's beautiful. The universe conspires to give us what we need. I wanted to find out, I remember walking in at What If the World, the exhibition, the particular piece there, the things that only time will teach you, 2024 piece. And I remember you explaining it to me. When I saw it in the book as well. It's just, again, it's sandpaper. It's something that one discards, that one doesn't think about. It was just a piece that really spoke to me in so many ways. Again, when we speak about the passage of time, we speak about age. But the things that only time will teach you, what are the things that time has taught you?
Oh gosh, I'm going to sound like a cliche.
No.
When you say something
There's no
like
space for cliches here. Don't worry, nothing is a cliche. But yeah.
But you know, like that, I'm going to speak about that specific piece because I gave it that title because if I knew how much work that piece was going to demand of us, I maybe would never have started. And so, you know, I was jokingly saying about this naive leap of faith, you know, going into studying art and knowing that even if I didn't make it as an artist, I'd find something else that suited me. I think that it's this trusting the process. It's this like committing oneself to the journey. I just got off a hike in Kenya at my first one at altitude, which was crazy. That's a different kettle of fish. But, you know, you get this thing when you're hiking and it's misty where you can't actually see where you're going, but you can see enough where to put the next few steps. And
I love that analogy. Sure.
But then you take those few steps and then you get to see a few steps further. You know, and you get to see a few steps further, and maybe you've planted a pin in your mind about where you want to be eventually, but you've got to just take those steps that are in front of you and present themselves to you. And I don't know. You know, I've tried to work with what's presented itself to me. I keep my eyes open. I try to take notes. I try to get offline.
Get offline. I think that is so important. I was actually. I think we don't have the privilege of boredom anymore.
Sure, that's so true.
And boredom is a privilege because that's where you have conversations with yourself.
Totally.
And you have the chance to actually see what your imagination holds.
Like, I mean, I wonder how many people have done a road trip in the last few years where you've actually just looked out the window. Yeah. Whereas that was your childhood when your family went on holiday.
I spy with my little eye.
Literally, you know, and the brain takes those moments to filter so much, you know, and I think I also tell my team in the studio, I say, guys, like the human eye is so perceptive. We need to finish our work well. We need to like do these little things well because then the work appears as this experience that draws the viewer in, right? Whereas if we leave parts undone or like little things showing or whatever, it can break that moment. So our eyes are so perceptive. We see maybe more than we realize, but we don't process as much as we see, you know? And I think that there is something to the fact that my work takes so much time. And I think that there's a like, I hope enough of a magnetic hold that people get to sit with it for enough time that it can also give them something back when they see it.
The ultimate gift, huh? Time.
Really.
Natasha Becker, Shauna Tula obviously read their essays. I had an interesting moment when I met Natasha and Sean. I just saw this week and we were chatting about Venice and what we can. I mean, I'm super excited to see what we present at our pavilion. Natasha, she's played a big part in your career as well. Tell me about your interaction with her. I could obviously get an idea from the essay that I read, but tell me from.
Sure. So, I mean, Natasha and I haven't known each other all that long, but we kind of crossed paths for the first time digitally in 2021 when she was curating a show in Miami that she included my work in at Piero Acciugari Gallery in Miami. And then we met in person in 2022, I think, when she came to Cape Town to curate the Tomorrow's Today section.
Yes.
So we digitally connected first, then we, IRL'd. And I think she's just someone who, I don't know, I'm a young artist, so you have this term curator, and there's someone who sits on a pedestal in an institution and you can't email them directly or whatever. But I think interacting with people like Koyo, with people like Natasha, these are people, who break bread and drink wine and chat with their friends and are very, I think, gregarious and open to those around them. So, I think she was just very warm and welcoming and like told me about what she does. And then ended up, she was part of the committee that bought one of my works for the San Francisco Museum. And at that point, we were finalizing who could contribute to this publication. And she just seemed like a perfect choice. And she wrote an amazing, thoughtful article, I guess, on both these topics of time and artificial reality and attention, in this modern moment. So it was great to have her contribution. And I think she really flies the South African flag high.
She does. I had a chance encounter with her in a restaurant in Cape Town. And
oh, how nice.
It was so exciting for me also as somebody who's new or relatively new to this world to hear her perspective as someone who was raised in South Africa but now has a global footprint in terms of how she is also bringing to the fore a lot of South African artists' voices. Sean O'Toole.
Yes.
Oh my goodness. I mean, you cannot speak about the South African art landscape without mentioning his name.
Really, yeah.
His piece was also very insightful and beautiful and poignantly written from the place, Johannesburg, the sense of time and space.
Sure. And again, a very generous, very generous of him to give time towards something like this because he's incredibly busy. But this is actually the first thing we've professionally done together, Sean and I. We've only ever connected in artistically social spaces, which has actually been really nice. We just kind of, Sean, what's happening? And I ask him about his cycling and, we just chat about life a little bit. But I think that's actually one of the things I cherish most about the art world. And I think you seem to have this experience as well, is that it's the art world is more about people are not the position they hold in that space. Yes. They
not
are
the title.
world. That position or that title is a doorway into multiple worlds. I really enjoy connecting with people along those lines. But I think the guys who've done it really well, like Sean, have whole lives. They go cycling for weekends and disappear, and he's probably digesting the 10 texts he's working on in the back of his head. But he was very thoughtful in his response, and I think he's also someone that knows these spaces of Johannesburg, of Cape Town, the international art scene very well. He has thoughtfully kind of looked at the span of art history and looked at references and stuff. So I really, was glad to have his eye on this. Yeah.
I absolutely love the fact, again, I got to know your works and then have watched you grow as an artist, as a person, seen you socially as well, because that is the thing, is we do exist outside of our titles. Your title is artist.
Sure.
To sharpen our senses and soften our touch, that's going to be my final question. What do you mean to evoke, or what do you hope to evoke with that title? So
with my titles, I sometimes use them the way I use my materials. I collect them, I find them, I scavenge them. I think this one I might have actually come up with myself because I was having a conversation with someone and they said to me, your toothpick works have this beautiful play between sharp and soft and, and they were like, oh, I wish you'd give me a title with sharp and soft or deception or something. And I think I've always loved long titles that are poetic, that draw you in, like titles that are like breadcrumbs,
the title in itself is an artwork.
Exactly. Yeah, well, thank you. But some titles are red herrings. They take you off on a little rabbit chase. Some are things that lead you deeper into the work. But I think that for me is, and I've had that as my Instagram bio for the last 2-3 years. And I think that for me is maybe a one-line summary of my practice. I want people to be aware of the incredible power they hold just by what they see, and how we see. I think our eyes are as much receptors as they are projectors. So to sharpen our senses in the sense that we are highly attuned to the world around us, but then to be gentle in the way we navigate those spaces and how we touch things and people and move, and that's kind of sensitivity I think is needed in this world, in this moment right now.
Chris, a perfect way to end off. Thank you so much. I look forward to delving into your book over and over again, because it is, you feel you want to sit with it and spend time with it and allow your eyes to do the seeing. So thank you very, very much for your time.
Thank you. What a privilege. So good to be here.